I've not thought of an intro.
Hi, my name is Liam Triforce, and this is Vinny from Vinesauce, and we're going to be doing our second interview.
Yeah, good. That was good. How you been?
Well, so this is Liam Gallagher from Oasis I'm talking to, right?
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Well, listen, you should get the band back together. I don't care what anyone says. You are not a potato, and your brother isn't either. Just play the music, and it'll be fine.
I don't know a lot about Oasis, but I do know that it feels like every song they write, they just know how to get people to sing along. It's incredible, and I understand why they are missed.
They actually, if you want to talk about Oasis for a minute, I will, and I'll say that they were a guilty pleasure of mine because people did not think Oasis were particularly cool, and because the songs are so simple that it's like, oh, dude, why aren't you listening to Pendulum or like some crazy math rock band like Oasis? What are you doing? But a band like that is missed because, yeah, they were so simple, and that's part of the charm, and they had really catchy, good melodies, and truthfully, Liam had a pretty strong singing voice. You get to a point where you start to miss bands like that because we don't have a lot of them that are pretty popular at the moment.
When you say math rock, the only band I can really think of, because I don't know the genre too well, but the only band I can think of is Daughters. Do you know about Daughters?
You know one more math rock band than I do.
Okay, cool. Anthony Fantano gave their most recent album a 10 out of 10. I don't watch him, but it must be good.
Yeah, that's like, I haven't watched Fantano in a long time, but I will say he liked Gizzard, King Gizzard, and I don't think he ever gave them a 10. So he must really like them. Wow.
Yeah. I didn't know that. Yeah, I'm probably going to cut up the Oasis bit at the beginning. It was a little all over the place, just going to be honest.
Yeah, listen, all over the place is fine as far as I'm concerned, because as a streamer and as someone who makes videos, I tend to default to just whatever random crap comes to mind, and it becomes a jumble. And I've had people who get upset with me because I talk about my interests. It's like, well,
oh man,
what do you want me to talk about?
Yeah, you should talk about my interests, Vinny.
Oh,
you should be talking about Persona 5.
All right, now I know.
Yes. If I hear another anecdote about Liam Gallagher, I'm going to puke.
So will Noel Gallagher. He will also puke. Liam's brother.
I've heard little jokes about that, but I don't know anything about that situation.
I can't believe I'm going to be enlightening you and your audience on the Oasis situation, and I'm sorry for this. This was not how I expected any of this to go. It's just you share a name with another famous Liam. So
no, it's because I am Liam Gallagher. I probably deserve to know.
Well, Liam Gallagher, you should know that your brother Noel does not like you very much because you have trash-talked his wife and his children, and also just him in general. Yeah.
Why would I do such a thing?
Because maybe you have some unlooked at issues, because then you don't understand why your brother doesn't like you anymore. And you're like, wait a minute, my brother doesn't like me. I don't know why. We should get Oasis back together. And then the next day you tweet about his wife being like not a good person. So yeah.
Wow. Okay.
There you go. That's the situation in a nutshell.
I better reevaluate my values then. Jeez.
Yeah.
And maybe I can make it happen. Maybe I can get Oasis back together.
If Liam Triforce manages to get Oasis back together, I would be very happy.
Oh man. Well, that's going on my bucket list.
Yeah.
Get Oasis back together.
Yeah, that's all. It's easy.
Right. So last time we spoke, not in on recording, but off the recording, we were talking about Jackass Forever.
Yeah.
Ever since I saw that movie, some of my audience is going to be a little perplexed as to how I could have liked such filth. But no, filth. Jackass genuinely is a good franchise. Honestly, it's everything that they do is aimed at themselves. and it just feels like there's an odd wholesomeness to that those movies. And if you're not a fan, I understand, but it's a great film series. Honestly, I mean, early on it was a little too crass for my liking, but I think starting with 2, it was like they got things together, and it was but Jackass Forever, dare I say, might be my favorite.
Okay.
It was
good choice.
I mean, the thing is with these movies is that all the pranks and stunts are all scattered throughout. All my favorite ones are scattered throughout the franchise. Some movies have my favorites, others have some other favorites. And I've been thinking about it since I saw it, and Super Mega recently did a Super Mega cast talking about the film a little bit. And have you seen any of Steve-O's podcast?
I have. I recently watched the one with Johnny Knoxville, and then Chris Pontius, and a couple other like scattered moments, but not all of them.
Also, the first episode of that podcast, he was on with Tony Hawk, and that was a dream. I loved listening to that.
Okay, cool. That's good. That's a good recommendation for later.
Yeah, it was great. Tony Hawk was in Jackass Forever, by the way.
He was briefly, yeah. When Chris Pontius's Little Pontius became a Godzilla.
Well, the angle, it wasn't so little, was it?
No, it was what an intro to a movie. I've never seen anything like that in my life.
That was there was throughout that entire intro, I was thinking to myself, there is some art to this. It's pretty well shot, and like I was kind of astonished by what they accomplished there.
It really is an accomplishment, even if it's serving just ridiculousness and like something completely silly and gross. The intro to the new Jackass movie took art and like practical effects, and there's stunts in the beginning, and you have good cameos from like Tony Hawk. It's amazing. It really is amazing. Yeah.
Oh man, the Tony Hawk cameo. So most of this is going to be, if you haven't seen Jackass Forever or intend on watching it, we're going to be talking about this for a little bit, but I guess I'll put a timestamp on screen for you to skip ahead. But with that said, yes, the Tony Hawk cameo was pretty cool. I loved that he was wearing the clothes that he was known for wearing in the 80s, and like, but let's just say he was covered in a substance that I remember vocally going, "No, Tony," when that happened. I was disgusted, but also just happy to see him. It was a weird situation.
Yeah, and I think that reaction is pretty standard for most people. Yeah, I kind of had a similar one where I was just like, why is this substance on Tony Hawk? But, maybe it was marshmallow fluff. So there's nice. That's nice if it was, because then it's edible.
Oh.
Yeah, well, here's what I wanted to mention, actually, when you mentioned Jackass and how like it became further refined, and I agree, 2 and 3 were more put together and professional, and like not really professional, but like
in air quotes.
Yeah, it just felt like things were much less slapdash and more thought out in advance for the most part.
Yeah,
and the stunts got better, but I think there was something recently that I read about that was interesting. It's like a lot of people didn't like Johnny Knoxville's Action Point movie, which was
I was actually looking forward to seeing that, and then I heard it was horrible, and I was like, oh.
So I didn't watch it, but one of the arguments I read that I thought was interesting was one of the reasons that the Jackass movies work out so well is people are laughing. There's friends. They cut to the shots of the friends and the cast like laughing and enjoying themselves after someone gets injured, and then they get up. They always get up and kind of walk it off. Even if Johnny's in the hospital, when he gets out of the hospital, they film him and he gives a thumbs up, and you have people like kind of like joking around about it. In the Action Point movie, anytime Johnny Knoxville does a real stunt and gets like damaged, it's just on to the next scene, and people aren't laughing, they're cringing. So
Yeah.
it's like you need a buffer. And one of the things about the Jackass crew, and I grew up with, I guess I was 15 or so when Jackass first started, but it's always been a part of my adolescence since then. And I think it's just because it's a group of friends just hanging out. And when you go and rewatch the old ones, it's like you're hanging out with them again. And the new one, it was nice because you got to watch these guys like as they're older, and they still have dumb. Listen, I'm 36. I have the dumbest sense of humor, and I'm fine with that. But when you watch them at like 50 and their sense of humor is like penis Godzilla, I'm like, yeah, there's hope for me after all. So,
yeah, I mean, I know it's called canonically, it is called the Ponyosaurus. But,
cool.
I called it when I was watching the film. I called it the Scrotzilla.
That's a good one too. Yeah,
that's just I was just enamored with Chris Pontius's monster.
His monster and his monster amount of motivation,
yes.
And his professionalism in the field of penis puppetry.
He has done more full frontal nudity scenes in film than I think any other actor, and I'm obviously not counting pornography, but
right.
He in Hollywood he's done more full frontal nudity scenes than any actor
in real Hollywood movies that are released in theaters.
Yes,
globally. That's weird to say. You're right. That's a bizarre thing to think about. Yeah.
So. Yeah. Let me think about some of my favorite skits. I always have to look away when anything involving vomit or shit is involved.
Yeah.
It's not for me, but there was something about the final stunt where I didn't look at them puking up milk, but just the fact that they were, spinning that fast and just, throwing up their guts everywhere. Yeah. And then they carpet bombed the area. It's just, how about that?
That was, you know what? When people are vomiting like crazy all over the place, my first reaction is carpet bomb. Like, remove all vomit. Just get rid of it.
Thematically, it fit.
I approve of that decision. But it really was, like, that last stunt, too, was amazing. And the production value was so good. I mean, that's why when you say that this is your favorite Jackass movie, I'm going to go ahead and say I understand that decision. I think 3D is still my favorite.
3D
this
has
one is very good.
Jackass 3D does have a special place because it was either that or 2. I watched both of them back to back when I discovered Jackass at a friend's house, and I was like, I don't want to make you feel old here, but I must have been approaching 7th grade at that point.
Yeah.
So it was the thing is we tend to cite Jackass, and not we, but most people tend to cite Jackass as a juvenile film series, but juvenile doesn't seem like the right word. It was, as you described to me, Jackass is youthful more than it is juvenile. I mean, some of the stunts are juvenile, but youthful is a better description for it. It does make you, especially when you consider how old the cast is getting. I think that's why I appreciated the film so much, is that the film felt youthful. They knew that this was going to be their last time to do it, so they just wanted to feel, like they did when they were making those movies in the 2000s.
Yeah, and maybe they couldn't do all the same stunts, so they got, a new cast, some of which are pretty good, and any of the stuff that they were able to do, they still got, like, messed up. So
yeah, they did.
Yeah. But yeah, it's what a bizarre thing to become such a huge hit. And like, there are now a handful of dudes that are famous just for getting like damaged.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, absolutely bizarre stuff. But that movie was fantastic. And again, that is a weird thing too, because it transcends people that are just like that watch skateboarding videos to see people get injured. Like Jackass is such a huge, like worldwide ubiquitous thing that the movies do really good business. So it's just mind blowing, truthfully.
Yeah.
But there's something really cathartic about it. And the way the movies are made, I was talking about this with one of my friends the other day, is you don't know when the movie's going to end because there's no thread, but you're just laughing for an hour and a half straight. Mm-hmm. It's just, here's all the best bits tied together, and Chris Pontius's bits as well. Mm-hmm. And you have them all tied together into 1 hour and a half long package. I don't know why I keep using euphemisms. Package, let's say it's a sack of really good material that they put all together into one movie. Yes, this is why people watch me on the internet. Fun jokes like this. Mm-hmm. And yet, I couldn't stop laughing the whole time. So I'm glad they made that movie, and I'm happy to have seen it in a theater. My theater was not particularly packed, but it was busy enough that hearing other people laugh made things more funny.
Yeah,
so I'm glad I did that.
It was the same experience for me as well. Just having a crowd, hearing people react to each stunt. Before we move on from the Jackass discussion, I just want to talk about a few of my favorite stunts as well. Like, I know I mentioned the one where with the puke and carpet bombing, but Preston Lacey, you know how it starts? The shot begins with like a room, and it's like dollhouse style view. And my friend mentioned to me when that happened, he was like, I knew somebody, we were about to see some ball sack. And sure enough, you just see Preston inserting himself, I will say, into a little hole in the roof. This is vile. Yes. But and then you see the little boxing gloves, and you're like, okay, this is gonna happen. I definitely winced harder than I have watching a film, seeing that, but it was when they were trying to set up the second shot.
And he was shaking and miserable. Yeah,
and they were like, "Here, they were like, because they hit his package had receded." And they were like, oh get him out. And he's like, I'm getting him. I fucking lost it.
Yeah.
They didn't want to show themselves again.
No, they didn't. And it's just, again, the artistry of how they got these shots and how they trick the audience into thinking they're seeing one thing. And then a minute later, it's like, oh no, you're seeing this. It takes effort to be this dumb and have it be that entertaining and have that much like artistry to it. Mm-hmm. That's the best, really kind of, I think, the best way to describe it. It's hard, you got to be tough, you got to be dumb, but at the same time, you kind of have to have an eye for how to make something like this interesting and not just gross. And they do that. They make all this dumb stuff that I wouldn't want to watch normally. I'm not Googling boxing glove balls, but yet when I watch it in the Jackass movie, it's incredibly entertaining.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're good at it.
Yep.
There was also the bear one was
poor Aaron.
Yeah, Aaron. Oh my god. There was, speaking of Aaron, the cup test was brutal.
Yeah.
The pogo stick one. Oh man. But
the pogo stick right to the cup, and the cup did not do as much. It probably did more damage, truthfully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There were plenty more that I loved from that movie, and I don't want to go on about it all day, but it was a good one. And I found out after the fact that Bam is in the movie, not in the credits.
He's in the treadmill scene, right?
Yes.
Briefly. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Speaking of hitting your head off of the ground, Johnny Knoxville with the bull one. Do you remember when Butterbean knocked him out in the old movie?
Yeah, he had a concussion.
And he was like trying, you know when it sounds like you're snoring, but you're trying to swallow your tongue?
Yeah.
That happened again with the bull, and I was like, oh god.
Yeah, it didn't sound good. I mean, there were moments where you audibly gasp watching that movie, and
Yeah.
but again, that's the thing is they show the shot of him coming out of the hospital, and then they're joking around with him, and it's like, thank God for that. Otherwise, that would have left me very uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. The Action Point movie didn't do that, and he suffered some of the worst injuries of his career on that film.
Yeah, I've read about that. It's incredibly dumb of him and incredibly brave. And some of the stunts I have seen, you can't even see his face. So they literally could have gotten a stunt actor, and they just said, "No." Johnny was like, "I'll do it."
Perhaps the worst injury he's ever received, though, was he was filming something for like an Evel Knievel tribute video, and he hadn't really ridden a motorbike before, but he tried to do like a flip or something like that. Or was it? No, it was a loop.
Did it landed on him?
Yes. So he went it to the peak and fell, and then the motorbike came back down and landed right on his Ponyosaurus. And so at first it was like, well, I think I just peed myself, right? Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, people listening. So every time his heart would beat, there was blood coming out of it.
Good.
So
wow.
that was his worst injury, and it was for a DVD that, like, it wasn't a Jackass thing or anything. It was like a separate Jackass thing. I don't even know if it sold that well, but jeez.
Imagine going that far for something that isn't even going to be that. Like, I mean, that's why Johnny Knoxville, as far as I'm concerned, I respect the dude. I respect his drive. I respect, he is an okay actor in the right role too. And I respect his ability to say, you know what? I need to prove that I can still do this, and I can show people that this is why I'm the captain of the Jackass team. And he'll just get himself all messed up and do these crazy stunts just to, like, have something to say about it, and just so people can be like, oh my God, he did it, that he's the captain. And then he can't, use his Ponyosaurus, to use that euphemism, which is a fantastic euphemism. Yeah. So I respect the guy, even though I know that is the dumbest possible thing you can do with your life. Hell, it made him a millionaire. Yeah, it worked out. Those are great films, by the way. It's just, like I said, just they might seem juvenile in appearance, but they feel youthful, and they bring you back to a simpler time, no matter where you are. It's and critics seem to appreciate that too. It's the best reviewed Jackass movie. And it's nice that they went out with a bang. Well, Johnny mentioned something in an interview recently where he thinks that the people that grew up with Jackass are now reviewing movies.
Yeah, that sounds right.
That's probably why it also did well critically, is, maybe a lot of the people that watched Johnny when they were 15 are now 35 and reviewing films, Kind of cool.
Right. So
I'm waiting for my audience to, start directing movies, and they're like, you know what? We could use that Vinny guy to do a scene in this movie, and then I show up. I'm like, oh, by the way, I can't act. So that's going to be fun in the next couple of years.
What if it's a Jackass movie?
No, no, I'm going to pass on that. Right. I think.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. I do not have the stomach for that. So that's why I respect them so much.
Agreed.
So speaking of movies, it's been a couple months since Spider-Man came out. Once again, if you have not seen Spider-Man, the Blu-ray's coming out in March, and it'll have apparently 100 minutes of bonus footage from the film that got cut, including stuff with Spider-Man and his spider friends. So yeah, if you haven't seen the movie, go ahead and skip to this timestamp. But my history with Spider-Man is as long as I can. It goes back as far as I can remember. The first memory I have, one of the earliest memories I have, was with the original Sam Raimi movie on VHS. So I think I've probably been a fan of Spider-Man since then. I don't know about you though.
Well, I'm a new fan to the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies because I watched them for the first time just before No Way Home came out. And the reason I didn't watch them is I wasn't crazy about superhero stuff, like at all. And then I ended up liking Spider-Man in Civil War and then the Avengers, and I watched, the new ones, and I liked them. So I said to myself, all right, well, it's time I watch these movies, and I like Sam Raimi as a director. So I can tell you, as someone that didn't grow up with those movies, they have aged very well. I loved them. I mean, not the third one that much, but it was okay. The first two are amazing, though. And I'm going to say that this new movie got almost close to that level. It did crazy, amazing things that, we couldn't believe, when you watch it in the theater. But just in terms of quality, those Sam Raimi movies are kind of hard to top. But the new one, I think, got kind of close. And those are great movies. So yeah, it's fantastic. I love No Way Home, and I love Spider-Man 1 and 2. So yeah,
I definitely have seen Spider-Man 2 more than any other film on planet Earth. I think I've rewatched it several times. It is one of those films that transcends the superhero genre, like The Dark Knight. If you haven't seen The Dark Knight, by the way, Vinny, that's also a very good movie.
Course. Yeah, I've seen that in the theater. That was a favorite for a while. Yeah.
It was. It's those two are great movies. Spider-Man 3 I saw in theaters in 2007. And even though I was young at the time, I think I even realized that I got skimped out. They skimped out on Venom. At least I was like, I was excited to see Venom, and he was in the last 10 minutes of the film, and Eddie Brock was terrible in that movie.
Yeah, Topher Grace was completely miscast. Yeah,
Gopher Face. Have you ever heard that before?
No, that's good.
Yeah,
I like that.
Gopher Face is what, unfortunately... the worst part is my dad mentioned that he probably got that a lot in school. And that, which is...
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
But do you know he re-edited The Phantom Menace when that movie came out?
Topher Grace?
Topher Grace did something. I don't know if he had one called The Phantom Edit, or... Yes, he edited... So Star Wars Episode 1 comes out, and then when it's available, I think, he re-edited the movie to remove a lot of the Jar Jar stuff, a lot of the midichlorian stuff, a lot of the Anakin being, obnoxious, and he cut it into a shorter movie, and it got, kind of famous online.
Oh,
and that is way back in the year 2000.
I heard that was
Gopher Face.
Yeah, I heard about the re-edit. I had no idea it was him. Wow.
He did one of several. But I think his got a little bit viral, and there were a lot of news articles about Topher Grace re-edits The Phantom Menace. It's so weird that he has... Yeah, just weird.
Yeah, weird. Personally, I don't know if I could go watch The Phantom Menace without Now This Is Pod Racing. But
I feel like that's the half the fun these days.
Yeah.
You got to watch the whole thing. You have to.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. My dad actually... enjoys The Phantom Menace a little bit, and
there's stuff to like, yeah.
And he said he was a fan of Jar Jar. Well, I hear the way he describes it to me, probably ironically. Uh-oh. But
listen, it's time. It is time. If it was never time before, it is time now to disown your family. No, I'm kidding. Don't do that. And hey, if you're listening, kids, don't do that either.
From what I understand, it's an ironic enjoyment. But
that's my enjoyment.
Yeah. But he also thinks that Episode 3 is a good movie, and honestly, I think it is pretty good.
It's not. I mean, people have different opinions on movies. I don't like the new Matrix, and I've had people, argue with me on that, and I'm just willing to let people have things because it doesn't really. Yeah. It doesn't really bother me. I do like Episode 3, And I will say that there's a lot of dumb stuff in there that I'm willing to kind of overlook because it's got a cool, like, tragic feel to it.
Yeah.
And I have that movie on DVD. I don't have the other two.
It is
something.
That film is by no means perfect. I just when it's just I think that the new Star Wars films kind of made me appreciate Episode 3 a little more because of what it wanted to achieve.
I think so.
I think
I
thought
so
The
too.
Rise of Skywalker was really dull.
I hated Rise of Skywalker, so I'm gonna go further than dull, and I'm gonna say dog shit.
I thought it was I was talking to a friend of mine that I hadn't seen in a long time yesterday at a restaurant, and they were like, we got on the topic of Star Wars, and he was like, hey, The Rise of Skywalker was awful. Do you feel the same? And I was like,
a hell of a way to start a conversation.
Well, at that point, we've been talking. We know each other really well, so it's
Gotcha.
He was like, yeah, if we're gonna talk about Star Wars, do you hate The Rise of Skywalker? And I was like, I don't think it's a very good movie. So he was like, oh, thank God. But it's I don't know. It's just it felt like it was compensating for The Last Jedi's missteps, and like I'm mixed on The Last Jedi, honestly. I don't feel strongly either way about it. I have things that I like, things that I don't, but I could take it or leave it.
I mean, it's funny because if any of my audience is watching to like learn a little bit more about me from this interview, they're going to be like, oh no, Star Wars again? But I guess I brought it up. No, but really, I would like to say The Last Jedi had some cool stuff. I appreciate that Rian Johnson tried to do something different and tried to make a point about some stuff, but I don't think it was handled particularly well. I liked the movie after I saw it in the theater, still knowing that there was some stuff in there that made me like actually physically recoil. Yet I enjoyed the spectacle of it and seeing it with a full packed house. But then the problem with The Last Jedi for me was, and I've said it before, and this is going to make me look kind of dumb, and that's fine, I am, but the internet kind of ruined that movie for me. Because the more I thought about it and sat on that movie, I was like, oh, that doesn't make sense. Oh, that's dumb. Oh, that is completely out of character. And then I watched, like, Liam, I went on like a week-long video essay spree for Last Jedi. And whatever was popping up in my feed, I would just watch. And truthfully, the positive stuff, it made me appreciate some new things, but mostly it kind of made me miserable. And I was like, oh, I don't like this movie. I tried to rewatch it and I just couldn't. I was like, I cannot watch this movie. It's not even that it's a terrible movie, because a lot of it looks really nice and a lot of it's well made, but I think the decisions were not done correctly from my tastes only, you know. And then Rise of Skywalker, exactly what you said, tried to overcorrect for Last Jedi, and it just completely unraveled the whole thread. And even if they had, you know, Rise of Skywalker could have made Last Jedi an even better movie if it just leaned into that and tried really hard to pick up the thread from Rian Johnson and roll with it and have it make sense. But then JJ and probably Kathy Kennedy and Disney were like, people didn't like that so much, so why don't we go ahead and, I don't know, just fart on screen? Mm-hmm. And that's what we got. So
I don't.
Sorry,
it's okay. By the way, for those of you watching, I don't really have strong opinions on Star Wars. I grew up with the original trilogy and a little bit of the prequels, because Episode 3 I watched a lot on like a little DVD player. But other than that, I'm not at all a diehard Star Wars fan. I am a fan, but I don't have strong opinions either way. Except for I mean, I do think the original trilogy is a great series of movies.
Oh yeah. That's my whole thing, is I grew up with the Star Wars movies on the original trilogy. So for me, the nostalgia and I would rewatch those movies like, you know, once a week for months. So I was obsessive about the original trilogy. The prequels were fine and they were fun, but then I was a little too old when they came out. So watching them, I knew something was wrong, especially Attack of the Clones.
Oh yeah, I felt the same way.
And then the Plinkett reviews like completely ruined the prequels for me for years, because truthfully, he was able to articulate stuff that I didn't know how bad it truly was. But then I felt like a dumbass because it took the enjoyment out of the movies. The problem is the movies aren't great in regards to like some writing, some acting. Some of the shots are really flat. Some of the CG is very plasticky. But there's a lot you can enjoy. And the tale of Palpatine rising to power and Anakin's fall, I don't think was handled perfectly, but it's something different. It's something interesting. And the extended lore that the prequels created that was in the Clone Wars and the games and everything was fantastic. So I applaud what George Lucas tried to do. I just wish he was working with some better people to rein in some of his shittier tendencies and also to patch up and punch up the scripts a bit.
I've heard
that's my opinion on the prequels.
I've heard stories about something that George Lucas did during the development of Force Unleashed 2.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the whole story, but I heard that he might have been the reason that Force Unleashed 2 released and it felt like a demo. They tried to do something in the story and expand the world a little bit, and George Lucas fought with the team a little bit at LucasArts over the direction. I don't know the whole story. It could be, you know what? I'm not seeing anything on Wikipedia, so I could be wrong. This could have not happened. But if somebody in the comments could clarify for me, I'd really appreciate that, because I actually really liked the Force Unleashed one, most of it. And
yeah, me too. I thought it was pretty cool.
And I would have loved to see the second one live up to that, be even better. But then it came out, my friend told me, hey, something went wrong.
Right.
And I heard that it was like a demo. It didn't last very long, and the story didn't really go anywhere. And I was like, oh man.
I didn't play the second one, but you see the Switch port that they're gonna do is the Wii version.
I saw that. When I saw the multiplayer, I realized, I was like, why is this so crusty? Is it just because of the Switch? Yeah. The Switch's trademark, the Nincrusto Switch kind of thing. But then I realized when I saw the multiplayer, oh my god, it's the Wii version.
Yeah.
Now, two things. One, the original version of the game is on Steam. It still is, and it hopefully always will be, unless Disney sells Star Wars to Microsoft or something. Two, the Wii version was trapped on the Wii for years, and if it were to ever be re-released, because it has an exclusive multiplayer mode that's really cool, it makes sense that they'd put it on the Switch because it has motion controls, and you could actually replicate the lightsaber.
Sure, but yeah, that makes sense.
It's very, very strange. It's very strange. I don't. People are going to be a little confused. There's going to be some confusion over what product they're buying, because they might remember the game on PlayStation 3 or Xbox 360. Buy it on the Switch. It's a different game.
Yeah. I mean, but listen, I know we're a stream of consciousnessing the conversation into a million different directions, but I wanted to mention the Kingdom Hearts version. Now, I've never played Kingdom Hearts, and I don't have any vested interest in this, but the versions on the Switch that they released are like, what are they? Cloud versions, and they're terrible. I've seen footage, and this is a game where you have to be precise.
Yeah.
You have to be, your reflexes have to be on point. And I've seen footage of this game with, from people with good internet connections sitting right next to their router, and it is stuttering, it's freezing, it's lagging. Why would Nintendo do that? Or Square, rather. Why couldn't they just put these PS2 games? Sure, the third one, I get they couldn't do that, but why wouldn't they make an attempt to get them on the Switch properly?
Now, Square has made some very interesting decisions in the past few years. But I understand Kingdom Hearts 3 being a cloud game. I mean, you probably could have ported it if you took the panic button approach with Doom and Doom Eternal and, worked really hard on that, getting it working. But this is Square Enix we're talking about. Squeenix is like, ugh, I don't know what they're doing these days. But the cloud versions of the original games, like, these are remasters of PlayStation 2 games. Apparently it had to do with the size, but with the mantra of the Nintendo Switch being crust, you could have probably compressed the textures, lowered the resolution, and that would have been enough for people, because if you're playing it on the go, the 720p resolution isn't going to make a difference.
Yeah, I agree. There could have been ways. I've seen games that are way more demanding. Square is either a lot of effort or no effort lately, and it's been really frustrating. And I wouldn't have even bothered with the Kingdom Hearts games. I don't have any interest. However, I'm upset for people that like those games that cannot play them the way they want to on the Switch. It's just infuriating, I know, yeah.
I was astonished that the Guardians of the Galaxy ended up being fun. After Avengers, I was like, well, this is going to suck. And the amount they showed at E3 was pathetic. It did not make the game look any better, but I played it front to back. I have no idea how. Well, I guess I do, but it drew me in. It was endearing, and the gameplay was simple but really enjoyable. It was really, really well written, and it actually did tug at the heartstrings a little bit in some instances. It was
so that won a number of writing awards last year.
Yeah,
too.
Yeah, it was it's not going to change the world. It's not like it's not like it doesn't have the level of writing that the original Last of Us does, but like it's really good. I understand where they were coming from with the awards.
It's interesting that Square can do that once in a while. Just still put in effort and make something really really good. Like, I love Final Fantasy VII Remake, despite some story issues, of course, but regardless, that game took years and years. It delivered. Granted, it was only the first part of the game, but it was good. And then you have Trials of Mana, which was, I think, pretty good.
I think you're mispronouncing the title there. It's
Trials?
Yeah.
Oh my God. How do we explain that to people who didn't watch my streams, Liam?
Okay. So, let's say you're at the casino and you're playing roulette, but the ball is weighted. All right? And when you spin the roulette, you have a 1 in 6 chance, right? So a 1 in 6 chance of the ball landing on the Uwu character.
Yes.
Now, the ball is weighted because Vinny was streaming Trials of Mana.
Yeah.
And it landed on Charlotte 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times?
In a row, yeah.
In a row.
Yeah.
That was the whole thing.
So the intro, a character would randomly say the name of the game when you start the game up.
Yeah.
And I got the Uwu character each time, and the joke with my chat was I have to take a shot every time that happens. So 5 times in a row at one point. Yeah.
Man, oh man.
Yeah.
If you were trying to troubleshoot your graphics settings, that would have been hell. It's just like, oh, cool, Charlotte again.
Yeah, that you'd have been drunk by the time you played the game by then.
That would have been more enjoyable, honestly. The English dub is hilarious.
It's some of the voice acting was so bad in that game. That's why Live Alive, which is a Japanese only RPG from Square that was announced at the Nintendo Direct, and it looks like Octopath Traveler. It looks beautiful. I'm going to pick it up day one. I'm going to stream it. Love that game. It has voice acting. I'm not sure about it because Final Fantasy VII Remake had amazing voice acting. Trials of Mana, not so much.
I can't believe that Badger from Breaking Bad was Wedge. That's
amazing.
It was such good casting.
And that's coming from someone now who's just now watching Breaking Bad. I'm on season 3 for the first time. So when I saw Badger in the show, I'm like, why do I know that voice? Who is this guy? And then maybe 20 minutes later, I'm like, oh my God, that's Wedge.
I can't wait. So you're watching Breaking Bad for the first time now?
Very first time, yeah.
Okay. That's like my second favorite show of all time.
Yeah, I have several friends that have said similar things.
It was a milestone in television. It was just amazing how they were able to portray such a story. I don't want to give anything away, but you're on season 3.
I just got to the pizza on the roof.
Nice. Okay.
So yeah, I know now. I finally get the meme.
And you understand that. Have you heard of the stories?
It was an accident. He didn't realize it was going to go up on the roof,
and they tried to do it again, and they couldn't.
Yeah.
And then people started throwing pizzas on the house in real life.
Yep, the person that lives there. Yeah, they had to deal with pizza roof, like constantly. Nice.
Yeah. Those
poor bastards.
I know. Yeah. It's well. In any case, once you're done with Breaking Bad, unfortunately that show has to end. But Better Call Saul is very good as well. It honestly, the latest season that aired in the beginning of 2020 rivaled Breaking Bad in quality. It was so good.
Yeah, that's next for me, definitely. Yeah, I'm gonna go from one to the next. And then I'm hoping to finish all of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul by the time the last season of Saul comes out in April. So that's my current plan. We'll see if I'm able to follow through with it.
I wish you luck. Is it actually coming out in April, the new season?
That's what I've heard, yeah.
Okay, good.
I don't know if it's true. That just seems to be what is the speak at the moment.
We were going to talk about Spider-Man, but we went on a tangent. So, I mean...
You can if you want, if you have any specific questions or specific thoughts.
I just so you had only seen the Raimi movies recently, but you went to see No Way Home. I had seen the Raimi movies by the out of diapers, like on VHS. Spider-Man 1. Mm-hmm. Was probably a little older than that, but those movies are really important to me. And actually, the original Andrew Garfield film, I honestly, there are parts of it, like I don't think the lizard is very good. I don't like Dr. Connors in that movie. But Gwen and Peter are handled very well. I think they handled the origin story really well. It was faithful to the comics. Verbatim, some of the dialogue was the same as when I was rereading Ultimate Spider-Man. I noticed that it was the same. And it honestly, it was delivered very well. Andrew Garfield is a good actor.
He's fantastic in No Way Home.
Yeah, and he was recently in a film called Tick, Tick, Boom on Netflix, and he's up for an Oscar for that.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So I am a fan of that movie. I'm not like an insane advocate for the Amazing Spider-Man. It is a little rough, but it has its moments where I'm like, oh my God. There's a part where he's dealing with the death of his uncle, and Flash comes up to him after Flash antics, but he comes up to him after he hears, and he's like, hey man, and he says, not today, Flash, and then he doesn't want to deal with him, so he swings him against the locker, and he's like, and Flash just goes, feels good, right? I'm sorry about your uncle. And just the humanization of Flash in that film is something I appreciate. There's a cartoon called The Spectacular Spider-Man that I doubt you've seen, but it is so it might be one of my favorite depictions of Spider-Man in general, because it had a lot of that humanization, and you wouldn't expect it from the way it looks and what, airing on Saturday mornings, you wouldn't expect that, but it was like on par with Batman the Animated Series sometimes, not in tone, but in heart. It was a very good show, and it got canceled early. Because you know what? Because Disney bought Marvel. That is the reason.
And that was enough to get the show canceled?
Yep, legal issues forced them to cancel it and do a new show. It was a fantastic show. I absolutely loved the Spectacular Spider-Man, and I just watched it with my brother. We got to the final episode of season 2. It was going to continue into 3, and he was like, seeing his reactions with it. I don't want to spoil it for people that want to watch it, but that show, oh my god, that show is good. And the amount that it's set up at the end of season 2 for the next season was just super exciting, and canceled. It was like, it was I'm trying to think of an example of a show that did that. Firefly I haven't seen Firefly, but I heard something like that happened.
The way it was canceled?
Yeah, it got canceled after one season, and it set up
one season, and they did a movie. Yeah, I mean, I've watched some of Firefly, but I mean that's happened with a lot of shows, and I feel like when you get to a point where you set up all these threads, you also have to have a way out, just in case you get canceled. But that they did their best with Firefly, and I think Star Trek Enterprise. Listen, now people that know me are going to start taking shots, but it didn't. They canceled that show a little early, and it ended in the stupidest way possible. So it happens. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but it does happen. At least I'm glad Breaking Bad, got its seasons, and it just 5 is a good amount.
Yeah,
that's I think that some of my favorite shows went to 7 seasons, and that worked out. But sometimes that 7-season thing is just too long. And if you're Game of Thrones, you probably need another 2 seasons than what they got. But, it just depends on the material. Sometimes you can't keep a show going forever. But other times you want more. Like for a Spider-Man show, or for a show where there's like a monster of the week, you can have that going, I think, for a long time. And you can just do something new. Every couple episodes, you just do something new, something weird, and like a plot that you can resolve in one episode. And I like shows like that a lot, actually. That's why I like the X-Files so much.
Yeah, I do love episodic shows. Episodic shows that string a narrative together, an overarching narrative, without feeling like each episode is disconnected, are my favorite shows.
Agreed. Yeah, absolutely.
My favorite show...
Like Deep Space Nine and TNG and X-Files did that really well. Those are my favorite shows.
X-Files for sure. My favorite show is Avatar: The Last Airbender. It has been since I was young. And it told the story exactly like that. And because it was episodic, the entire series focuses on the consequences of war, death, genocide. A lot of the themes of war circulate throughout Avatar in different ways in the way they tell stories. And because it's episodic, you can focus on that impact. There's an episode called The Southern Raiders, in which Katara, she confronts the man that killed her mother. I don't want to spoil what happens, but let's just say that subject matter and how she deals with it is not at all something you would expect from something that aired on Nickelodeon.
Right. That's what I've heard over and over again about that show, is how fantastic it is. No matter what age you are, you can enjoy, like, a lot of the stories are more universal or a little bit heavy for that kind of show. Yeah. And that's why the M. Night Shyamalan movie, I guess, failed so spectacularly. It just didn't grasp any of that, if I'm not mistaken.
It was more concerned with following the movie or following the show's first season than it was with developing any character. Like things just happen. They in the span of 3 episodes, in the 3rd episode of the show, they go to the Southern Air Temple. So that's 66 minutes of content, roughly. In the movie, they don't ask him his name until then. They don't ask Aang his name until then because it's so concerned with just vomiting exposition. It's such a boring, dull fucking movie. I hate it so much. And I saw it in theaters opening night with friends, and we were young, and even we were like, they fucked this up. So yeah, that was rough. But the creators, Mike and Brian, they dropped out of the movie after they stopped, hearing, after they were giving feedback and they weren't listening. So they dropped out due to creative differences, worked on the sequel series Legend of Korra. And I'll tell you something, working on a TV show is draining. If you're just trying to develop one, it's draining. If you're trying to run one, it's even more draining. And after 2 of those shows, especially after Legend of Korra did, unfortunately, it's hard to follow in the footsteps of Avatar, but Legend of Korra, they had to deal with a lot from the internet. But I genuinely thought Legend of Korra was really good, especially its 3rd and 4th season.
Okay.
So it's also, but I think it was also just because there were a lot of factors, and you can form your own opinion on the Legend of Korra, but I understand why they haven't done a 3rd Avatar series. It's draining, and it's also kind of difficult because Legend of Korra was 70 years in the future, so they had to do like a steampunk, not steampunk, but it was like a 1920s-esque setting of like a New York City that was a blended cultures from all places of the world, and technological advancements were if they were to go any further than that, it would be weird for Avatar. So
I see. Okay. Yeah, that's there. I don't want to dovetail too far into all of my things that I like, but I'm going to say that they're apparently doing a Blade Runner TV show, and Ridley Scott's involved, and they're going to set it in 2099. So that's, let's say, 80 years past the first movie. So I'm wondering what that's going to be like.
Yeah.
Because part of the reason I like that movie is because it has crusty old retrofitted buildings and cars.
Yeah, you know what?
That are also futuristic looking. And it's like, if it's too futury, it might not have the same vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's why I love Aliens setting so much. So, well, okay. Spider-Man, we should probably I want to, before we get into all that, we should probably finish off with No Way Home, because it's getting a little ridiculous. The timestamp's going to say lol, we talked about something for 40 minutes. At this much point. But so Spider-Man, you saw it in theaters, I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did.
What was the audience reaction like?
Oh, it was cool. Like, people were into it. And when the other friends show up, there was clapping. And people were, and again, this is a New York audience. So sometimes they're just really silent, and other times they go mental. But I'm going to say that it was a mix of both for this movie. But there were enough, let's say, hype moments where people lost their shit, and myself included. And I will say Andrew Garfield stole the show for me in a lot of ways, just in terms of his likability and performance.
Yeah.
There's that.
That movie was a moment for him to redeem himself, I think, as Spider-Man. And it wasn't even his fault. It was the studio. Amazing Spider-Man 2 wasn't... It was overstuffed, like Spider-Man 3, but I think it balanced it even worse.
That's a shame.
In Spider-Man 3... Sandman was great, but he got sidelined because they had to deal with Harry and Venom. In Amazing Spider-Man 2, they had to balance Harry again in a worse form because he had no build-up. Electro, and they had to balance those 2 villains. And they also had to set up spin-off movies that they wanted to do because they wanted to create a fucking franchise and rival the MCU and all that, because that's what they're doing now with Venom, which is, by the way, Venom the movie is awful.
Okay.
That's at least what I thought. You could have fun with it, but it was an incredibly a huge missed opportunity, and I walked out just not happy. So
fair enough. Yeah, I've heard that from other people too.
That's where we're at right now, is that Sony's trying to rival the MCU, trying to get Tom Holland into their movies, all that stuff. I hate it. I just just wish it was as simple as making a film. Like,
yeah, just all you need is a good movie, and it can be its own self-contained movie, but the amount of money to be made from a shared universe and the amount of like merch
yeah.
and just public consciousness is huge. So yeah, I feel like Marvel kind of, for better or worse, changed the direction of how studios approach films from that point forward. So, but I will say it worked really well in No Way Home, and they're going to do something similar in Doctor Strange, the new one. So, you know, it can be done correctly. It's just a matter of, do you have someone who respects the source material and wants to tell a story that, you know, first comes story,
then comes marriage,
and then second, but then you have to do fan service should always be considered secondary to telling a good story, I think. So.
Yes. And that's exactly what No Way Home did, right? Now, just for reference, I had just seen Ghostbusters Afterlife not long before that movie came out. And by the way, rest in peace, Ivan Reitman.
Oh yeah, just passed away.
Big fan of Ghostbusters, so that was a sad news.
Yeah,
and it's nice that you know what, Ghostbusters Afterlife, pretty good movie. I think that it was there were times where it got a little too hokey with its fan service, but the film itself was just fun. It was it felt like, you know, a nice like new generation kind of take on Ghostbusters, and yeah, it was it wasn't going to change. It didn't blow my mind or anything, but it was fun. And like the fan service though, it was I was mixed on. I felt like they were doing it just to you know, give closure to the franchise, but at the same and in the context of that movie's narrative, it made sense. But it CGI Harold Ramis was
I've heard about that. Yeah,
was a little strange.
Yeah, well, I think it's like almost disrespectful at that point.
That's how I felt too. I felt a little. It was a little weird.
Yeah.
So No Way Home, I was a little anxious seeing Willem Dafoe and Alfred Molina return because, you know, you don't want to bring out back villains just for the sake of having them. And, you know, to some extent, I think I kind of felt that it was a very fan servicey kind of film. But I also think that in spite of that, Tom Holland's Spider-Man got the development that he fucking deserved. Like, it was pretty sick. He for a couple movies, he was piggybacking off of Iron Man, and he, you know, didn't know where to go after Endgame. But when No Way Home came out, they decided, all right, let's do this. Let's give him his own identity. And
yeah,
they did that in a
it was good.
It was a very heartbreaking film. But it was...
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, he has it almost more tragic than the other characters, the other Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, but also he had to deal with a lot of stuff, too. He lost his mentor in Tony Stark, and he lost his identity in this movie, you know, as Peter Parker. But he lost people that he loved, and he also... Now he knows he has these brothers out there, so to speak, but he can't just visit them. So it's kind of tragic all around. And he had like 3 main movies and a couple cameos to get there.
Yeah.
So, you know, now if they're going to do another trilogy, which I believe they are, it's cool that he's going to have a whole lot of depth, and they can explore that if they don't mess it up.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Yeah.
Yeah, Andrew, so I know there's a lot that's already been said about this film, but I being the big Raimi fan that I am since young child, Yeah, I was one of the people squealing.
It's nice when you get that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, that's like a once to get something that meant so much to you and have it done well, like Defoe's Goblin,
Yeah,
and Doc Ock, and actually being good. That's a nice feeling, you know.
yeah, it was. And Andrew Garfield, was also happy with, because, like you said, he stole the show. It was
in some ways, yeah.
It was nice to see the banter between the three of them, but there was a scene, you know, in Amazing Spider-Man 2. If you haven't seen it, well, I mean, it's not a good movie, but you probably know what happens at the end. So some people like it, some people don't, but the ending is good. Gwen, he can't save her, just like in
right, which leads into the character arc for this movie.
Yeah,
for No Way Home, right? Yeah,
it was pretty cool seeing him kind of redeem himself there,
and then not believe it, like almost like stunned that he did it.
Yeah, and then he says, "Are you okay?" And MJ goes, "Yeah, are you?" And he's quivering.
You know, even though I hadn't seen the movie that was from, it was telegraphed perfectly. Like, I understood what was happening.
Yeah.
So it was really well handled, even for someone that maybe didn't see those films.
Right. I don't want to. Yeah, a lot has been said about No Way Home, but I think the Twilight Princess video coincidentally fell. It came out right on opening day over here in Canada, so that was and some of the things I said in that video fell in line with Spider-Man's themes. So I think I verbatim repeated the "with great power" thing at one point because it was appropriate, and but I had not seen the movie at that point. It was just a funny coincidence, and now I kind of want to do a Spider-Man thing at some point.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's good about having something inspire you. I mean, you can take inspiration from something and see it everywhere.
Yeah.
So, you know, I really enjoy, like, even me watching Spider-Man No Way Home made me want to engage more with that, like in the games, you know, and maybe even at some point, like, play through some of the stuff that I missed in the past. So, yeah, I think it's great, man, that you got a chance to do that and have that for yourself and also be inspired by it. What was the similarity between Twilight Princess and No Way Home, would you say was the main one?
Oh,
I'm just curious.
It wasn't specifically No Way Home. It was Spider-Man in general. With great power comes great responsibility. Like, I wasn't thinking about Spider-Man when I was writing it, but when I saw the movie, I was like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah, good point.
It's you know, it's a quote that has transcended Spider-Man, and it felt appropriate to use it in the video, considering what I felt that game was about.
And that video was really good too. I agree. Like, it had, I kind of more or less agreed with a lot of what you said about Twilight Princess, but there was some stuff that, one of the reasons I like your videos is I'm able to, there are things that you articulate that maybe I feel, but was not able to say, or have it be as obvious as you would make it. And it's like when I watch your videos, and not just you, but other really, you know, people who make video essays that are extremely well thought out, and someone who maybe thinks a little deeper about something and not just was good big explosions. Mm-hmm. It's nice to have someone point out what's going on beneath the surface for them. And that way I'm able to internalize that a bit and maybe have a slightly deeper appreciation for the media. And I think there's almost, one of the things I learned over the years as a streamer is sometimes people give you a little bit of shit for not having your own opinion, quote unquote. Oh, you watch this video, you know, so you don't, you know, you didn't think about it yourself. And if you're only getting opinions from other content creators or, you know, reviewers, fair enough. But when I watch something, I try to formulate my own opinion. And then if I watch someone else's take on that thing, it can sometimes deepen my appreciation and make me think things that I hadn't before. Sadly, in the case of Last Jedi, it did the opposite. But,
Well,
that's what's interesting about learning other people's takes. Sometimes you kind of change your opinion, you assimilate those opinions, and you see things from a different angle.
I appreciate that, Vinny. Thank you. But yeah, Last Jedi is a complicated film, so I honestly don't blame you. Like it's hard to articulate how I feel about The Last Jedi even now.
Sure. Yeah, years later. Yeah.
Right. Oh, speaking of Spider-Man. Well, first of all, if you want to play those games, well, the Insomniac one is great. It's one of those open world games where just the nature and how you go to places makes just the act of traveling from point A to... It makes the act of traveling from point A to point B so fun that the actual activity doesn't even matter. Even if it is fun, or if it's not fun, it's hard to really process that because you're having so much fun playing as Spider-Man. And that's why the famous tagline, "Feel like Batman, feel like Spider-Man," is thrown around because that's what it does. And I know they don't articulate that in their reviews, but that's what it means to me, is that you in the Insomniac game anyway, the act of playing as Spider-Man was captured so perfectly in how you swing from point A to point B, and how that is a game in and of itself. The combat being as well thought out, it feels like they built exponentially on Arkham, and it just, that's what they did. That they've made sure that Spider-Man was fun to play as, and
that seems like the best possible starting point.
And then the rest of it came naturally. That's what I think people mean from a surface level standpoint when they say
really makes you feel like A, B, or C.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it's a very complicated thing though, because you could say that about any game. This game really makes you feel like Mario. It's like, yeah, okay.
Well, what does Mario feel like? I'll tell you what, though, as an aging Italian man, I'm starting to understand.
Yeah.
It feels like pasta stomach.
That's what I was gonna say. I've had pasta on the stomach, and I know what that feels like, and that's probably Mario when he jumps around.
When they say something, when they say like a meal is sticking to your ribs, that's probably what Mario feels like all the time.
Yeah, I got that impression too. Oh man.
Speaking of impressions, Luigi, the spaghetti's sticking to my ribs. Sorry, I am compelled to do such things, and I don't know why. I don't know who compels me. Could be the great cannoli in the sky, but it's in my blood. And whenever I think of a Mario thing, I have to do it in the Mario voice. And there are probably those listening that's like, wait, that's not Mario. Mario's wahoo, bing, bing. But when I grew up, Mario was, hey, Luigi. So very, very weird to go from gruff Mario to, whatever Mario we have now, which I like the new Mario better, but,
I think about that a lot, actually. Just how Charles Martinet defined Mario. Like,
yeah.
People say that it is a stereotype. Now, you being an Italian American,
I don't give a shit.
You don't give a shit.
Yeah, you can like your pasta mafia, whatever. I don't care. I mean,
your pasta mafia.
Yeah, sure. Whatever works for you, man. The whole idea of Mario being an Italian stereotype, it's just kind of more funny to me than anything. But it also has to do with the perspective of a Japanese man thinking about what an Italian man in New York is. I don't know if Miyamoto continued to develop Mario that closely, but, when his landlord, Mario Segale, or the owner of the warehouse, whoever it was, became enough of an inspiration for him to name his video game character after him, and then say, well, what if this guy was Italian? I think whatever then developed from that, they leaned into that for the cartoons, where he was eating pasta all the time and he was fixing pipes, and there was a lot more Italian stereotype stuff happening in the early 90s and 80s with Mario. And now it's really only the voice. They don't really, in the new Mario stuff, he's just kind of his own thing at this point. Well, I'm going to say Italian in name and voice only.
Yeah.
Which, that's cool.
I was thinking when Mario was established, it didn't feel like as much of a stereotype to me. To me, it was like, with the falsetto, like, and just the jovial tone, it's infectious. How happy he is.
It is.
And I think that's what comes
what I like
through
about it.
more than the part where he's sleeping and goes, spaghetti, ravioli.
Right.
Like I think that the game itself, not only is the game amazing, but like the fact that Mario's just infectiously happy all the time, and then when you hear that and you're reminded of his Italian inspiration that was possibly derived from Miyamoto's Landlord or whatever. It's funny. And I mean, like, I don't know. It's not really, I don't think I've really heard people make a big stink over it, but maybe I just don't
think so. I'm sure someone has. I'm sure in the 80s or, but we as humans will find ways to make our surroundings more difficult for us. And I feel like if someone, in the 80s was like, oh no, Mario is hurting me. That was
well put.
I'm sure someone has had that thought, and it's like, I don't know, bro. Like, just don't worry about it. It's Mario. But I'm sure Pac-Man has also hurt someone's feelings. I don't know. But as an aging Italian man, I can tell you that I think Mario's fantastic. And I'll tell you what, spaghetti is great. So is pizza. And fuck the mafia. But other than that, oh God, did I just say that out loud?
Don't worry. This is why we have editing.
Yeah, good. Edit that out, because you never know who's keeping an eye on. Oh, this Vinny guy from Staten Island said, fuck the mafia, huh? Well, we're not even real anymore, but we're going to come after him anyway. And I'm like, wait a minute. Is that old Mario from the 80s? It's true. Maybe there were multiple. Now that is a good idea for a movie. Enter the Mario-verse, where you have the gruff Mario. You have Mario from the sports titles. You have Mario from Mario 64, Charles Martinet. Bob Hoskins, rest in peace, but with CG, we can disrespectfully put him in the movie like Harold Ramis was put into Ghostbusters. And then you can have this whole Mario verse of like Paper Mario can show up too. Why not? And it would be like the what movie am I thinking of? Spider-Verse. Well, same thing. Yeah. And you just put them together. And the old Mario, he's just like turned to a life of crime. Well, I wasn't needed anymore, so I figured I got to make my paycheck somehow. That could be a fun, disrespectful movie. Great.
I would pay to see that.
I would too, actually. Yeah, I would pay to make it if I knew it was being made.
I would pay to be a Mario.
You know what? That's a good use of your money.
I agree, because it's my money.
That's right.
Actually, while we were talking about Mario, I was just staring at my 3D All-Stars posters that I got from my Nintendo. By the way, that program sucks ass.
Yeah, it does.
Compared to Club Nintendo. And Club Nintendo in America sucked ass compared to Europe and Japan.
Correct.
But
I'm just happy I got the Metroid posters that are glowy.
I have to set those up. I'm probably going to get frames for them if I can.
I got one of mine. I put mine in a frame, and one of them is hanging up, and it looks really nice. That's the only nice thing they've had in years.
Yeah.
In my opinion, yeah.
Obviously, I mean, I've had this screen name since I was probably 10 years old, but that's why I haven't changed it, is because I can't really think of anything better. But, and I mean, to be fair, I mean, Vinesauce is not only catchy, but it also, like, the origins were probably just as simple. well, I say simple, but it was a simple moment where it was vines growing out of
out of a butt. Out of a butt. It was a Mario Party minigame that was not ironically, but it was included in the newest Mario Party game. It was the vine climbing minigame, and my friends and I just thought it looked like vines were growing out of an ass. So that became my nickname for years. Anyway, yeah, it's a nice. Then Vinesauce happened, and like I've said a couple times, people confused me for Vinesauce for years and are like, "Oh, you do science?" I'm like, "I won a science fair once."
Yeah, but on the topic of Nintendo though, like as a more uplifting topic, I wanted to touch upon briefly like current projects and stuff for the both of us. So like what we're working on now and where we want to go from here. Hold on, Audacity. Okay, we're good. So I'm in the planning stages for Skyward Sword. I don't want to move too fast with Zelda because once it's over, it's over. And I've already done, all of the Zelda games that I think I grew up with, to say. And it's sad that that stuff is over. But that's why I try to take my time with these. But anyway, I've talked about this a little bit, but Skyward Sword, to me, is a. I don't want to spoil it. Actually, I'll take it back. But
okay. Well, I will watch that video. I'm really curious about that. So.
But I'll give you a little tidbit of information. So the Wind Waker video had courage in the title. The Twilight Princess video had power, and the Skyward Sword video is going to focus on wisdom. There's cool. There's a bigger part to that, about being wise, but I think I think that it's the game in part. What I want to say about the game actually ties into that really well, which worked out. Then when I get to Link Between Worlds, which is going to be the next game that I cover, I'm going to call back to the Link to the Past video from 2019, which was called How Link to the Past Redefined Zelda. I'm going to call it How A Link Between Worlds Redefined Zelda. And then when I get to Breath of the Wild in 2026, it's not going to take that long, but it's going to be a big one. Like Ocarina of Time was called yet another Ocarina of Time retrospective because so much has been said about Ocarina of Time. It's going to be that with Breath of the Wild because, so it's going to.
Well, by then it'll have been quite a bit of time.
Yeah, and I just thought it was a nice way to round things out. That's the plan, though. Other videos, though, cool. I've told you about one that I wanted to make involving Alien. I've been wanting to make a Metroid video for a while. I tried doing one on the music of Metroid. I ended up talking too much about the music of Fusion to the point where if I were to cover Fusion, everything that I would say would be rendered like repetitious because I had already made a video talking about most of what I love about that game.
Right.
So I got careful and I was like, oh, maybe I'll do the atmosphere. And I was like, well, the same issue will happen. If I want to talk about why Metroid Fusion is so good, a part of it has to do with that. So it got stuck. But the Alien idea, just Super Metroid and the film Alien have so many parallels that like it would just be a fun short little video. And you mentioned to me that doing short videos in between the big ones is a good idea, and it generally it's for me that's doing this full time. It in the end increase revenue, and it's not like I do this. Yeah. It's not like I do this to make money. I'm whether or not I survive on this, it doesn't really matter to me because I still want to do it. But yeah, But
having the means to do it financially is nice, so that way you don't have to stress and you can just continue to produce like stuff for your audience. And that's kind of the point. And especially if you're a channel that, isn't like, swimming in merchandise or sponsors, right? So it's a good idea to be able to be self-sufficient. And I think one of the reasons I'm able to put out a video every day is because I'm not editing them, and I'm able to just play the game and enjoy my session playing the game and then have the video come out or do a stream of it. But if I was editing all the time, I would also have to have smaller goals. Like, okay, I'm going to do a 5-minute video and it's just going to be a quick discussion on a thing that I like or dislike. It just seems like a good way to refresh the palate. And that way because also as you get better, I mean, this is kind of a general thing, but as you get better at making videos and editing, it almost seems like, well, how do you top yourself? Do I go bigger and more crazy? And I don't have, in regards to projects and ambitions and motivations, I don't think I have that in me anymore. I'm not to continually bring up my age, and people give me shit for that, but I reached a point where I stagnated, and I'm still in stagnant mode to a degree with my video game ventures. Whereas I want to play games, but in terms of like attention grabbing stuff for my content, my videos, my streams, I don't really know if I want to do bigger and crazier things. And I know some people try, and then like if their viewer numbers aren't as high as they should be, this is a bit of a tangent, but if their viewer numbers aren't as high as they should be, they get upset and depressed, like, oh, okay, I have to go even bigger than that. And I don't think that's everyone's path, but it's definitely not what I want to be. And I think I've reached many ambitions in the YouTube and streaming sphere where it surpassed most of my ambitions, and I'm pretty content to have had that. And now I'm just kind of playing games and chilling. That said, there is still the spark of like, well, I do want to do some stuff. And what do I do next? I already whipped creamed an alien.
Mm.
I've been an epic gamer named V-Dub.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I cosplayed as him is what I'm trying to say. And there's also like other videos that I've done that have gone around a bit, but I just want to be content with myself as opposed to be content with big views and numbers on the internet. So I think putting out a little something each day is nice, and I'm kind of okay with that as who I want to be. But I think, there are going to be people that expect more, and those big elaborate videos are nice and a sign of like, wow, you can put together a huge project and make it work. But sometimes it's okay, I think, to just chill a little bit, put out something smaller. That was a long tangent, but I kind of related it to my own personal experience, and we do very different things, you and I. But I think within the same realm.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Just different format.
Mm-hmm. And actually, you know what? I'll give you a personal anecdote of mine that reflects viewer numbers not really mattering if you're doing what you love.
Mm-hmm.
The other day I was streaming Crash Bandicoot 4. I was trying to get all the gems, and I was just, I tried playing Bloodborne. I was so used to the other Souls games that I was just like, I couldn't adjust right away, so I didn't want to waste people's time, and I switched games. When I was playing Crash 4, because I knew it so well, I just talked about whatever. There was a level in that game that reminded me of like a summer evening concert kind of vibe where there's like a barbecue. You got your friends. You can go like to the lake. I mean, you're from Staten Island, so I guess it's a little different. But actually, sorry, no, you're from the Jersey Shore. That's right. We established that last time. So maybe, but yeah. So they reminded me of that vibe, and then I started talking about how I went to visit my cousin, And there was a distinct memory when around that time I also went to a concert like that I was describing. And then my cousin introduced me to Toonami. And then I started talking about how Bionics introduced me to anime and stuff like that. And how all of that shaped my interest in animation. Well, I guess I was always interested in animation, but what as a medium it was capable of. Because Avatar would air on Wednesday nights and stuff like that. But like it was ridiculous how well I was doing while talking about just stuff from my past and all through that conversation with myself, I had like 15 viewers, and my YouTube channel has somewhere like a crazy number, 140,000 now. It's still hard to process, but it's not reflected in the Twitch numbers, and that doesn't matter at all to me because I'm having a good time. And
right, exactly.
And
that translates, and people will enjoy if you're having a good time, and hopefully you're finding ways to engage those people. You're also, you're able to do that to 4,000 people probably, but the fact that you're enjoying your stream with 20 people is more important, because if you're miserable for that because you don't see a number that you want, then no one's really going to enjoy your stuff. So, but that's the thing that's tough about Twitch. And also, really, not to cut you off, but the YouTube Twitch crossover rate, there are a lot of bigger YouTubers that then go to Twitch and they're like, wait, why are these numbers different?
Yeah.
And that's just kind of how it is. And I think it's part of it is the oversaturation of Twitch, and also the different audiences for pre-recorded content versus live content.
Yeah.
So
it's absolutely true. It's not like going to be a smooth transition. You can't just have people transition from one to the other unless you're a massive creator like I don't know, Mr. Beast or something. But
or Mr. Minecraft.
Yeah,
man.
one of those people.
Sure.
Nobody in particular. I don't really watch. Yeah,
whoever. Whoever.
So speaking of, as I got on the topic of anime there, there's two things that I just kind of want to lump together because this whole thing has gone on for a while now, but I do want to talk about a few things. First of all, I think last time you mentioned that you had seen Akira or Akira, or whichever you prefer. The Japanese pronunciation would be Akira, but Akira rolls off the tongue for if you're speaking English. I had just seen it in December when I told you about it, and it's like it inspired so much. I noticed so many things that I was like, oh, like the final scene I saw, with Submerged City. It was it inspired a couple scenes in one at the end of Sonic Adventure, and one in again a Sonic anime film that they made in '96. There was a scene that was just straight out of Akira, and the bike shot has been replicated in Batman the Animated Series and all that stuff. It as a film, it has influenced a multitude of different animated projects, and it was cool to see how. But I think more than anything, I absolutely loved how they presented its themes, and like it was just as philosophical as it was show don't tell. And like there was a scene in the hospital where he kills those two guys, and it's a wide shot. And it just happens. You see everything. And it's like so visceral. The way it presents gore too is like it sticks with you. It's really good. But my question to you is, A, what did you think of the movie? And B, if there were any other films of that ilk that you'd like to check out, would you?
I haven't yet, but I will. Yeah, there's a couple. I loved it, but I also am kind of new to the anime style because I didn't grow up with it, and I had a little bit of a preconceived notion based on trends on the internet of detective high schoolers with one weird superpower that go on adventures and then go back to high school. I know that's a huge generalization, but there's a lot of it.
To some extent, you're right.
That is popular.
Like it's a friend of mine will recommend an anime to me, and when he describes the premise, when he or she describes the premise to me, I'm like, it's like it always involves high schoolers. It always involves this kind of thing. It's not always like that. Like he said, it's a generalization, but it's a common theme, and I understand how somebody who didn't grow up with anime would be put off a little bit.
Yeah, so that was me for a while, where I had seen things that were inspired by that style, and I played a lot of video games that had that style and the Japanese flair that I liked. But I guess the word anime was in my mind something different than it was actually, which is it's just a style. Mm-hmm. But so I, for a charity incentive, was like, I will watch Akira. And I watched it 1.5 years ago, and I loved it. I watched it with Rubber Ross in VR, and it's one of his favorite movies of all time. And so he helped me appreciate it a little bit more. But I can tell you, the way it handles the themes, the tragedy, and the violence is just amazing. And the imagery will stick with me forever. And I've only seen it once, and I can recall a lot of things from that. And it just makes me sad, some of the stuff that is in that movie.
Yeah.
But in a good way, like a contemplative way. So, yeah, that to me is a classic as far as anyone's concerned. And I love the influence that it takes from Blade Runner.
I was going to actually... Yeah.
That also then, mirrors back to other fiction. So, yeah, it's a hugely influential movie. And I'm glad I saw it, and I'm glad I gave it a chance. And there's plenty of stuff like Ghost in the Shell I need to watch.
I haven't seen that
there's plenty of other stuff that I will watch one day.
I got to watch Ghost in the Shell. I've heard great things about that one.
Me too.
So, and Studio Ghibli is also just a treasure trove of good films. Like, obviously they're more fantasy, like whimsical kind of setting, but with like Princess Mononoke, Spirited Away, they're kind of all ages kind of thing where no matter how old you are, and Mononoke actually is more mature, so it's not like a Disney kind of thing with fantasy. It's most of Miyazaki's movies are definitely anti-war, don't hurt the environment kind of thing. But every time he presents it, it's in a new way, and it's from a new angle, and it's all within the backdrop of like this fantastical film. My favorite Ghibli movie is actually the first one. Well, it's not really a Ghibli movie, but they count it as part of the collection. Nausicaa and the Valley of the Wind is from 1986, I think 1984. It is my favorite of the bunch, and I also really like Spirited Away, Mononoke, but I don't want to go too much on a tangent. But yeah, it's like if you liked Akira, Ghost in the Shell is probably going to be up your alley.
Yeah.
Now, the other question now is time, and when it comes to anime series, that's a little different.
Yeah.
Cowboy Bebop is good.
I've heard.
That's going to be my first recommendation for you coming off of Akira.
You mean the Netflix TV show, right?
Yes, actually, yes, I am talking about the live action show.
No one ever is talking about that one.
It got canceled after one season, but it was good.
Yeah. Yeah, very nice.
I hated it, but
I know most people did.
I haven't finished the original show, but I've watched a good chunk of it, and people have described Cowboy Bebop as a gateway to the medium as a whole, and yes, now having seen it now, yeah, it makes sense to me.
Good to know. Yeah, I've heard a ton about it, and there was, I think, a Captain Christian video just the past 2 weeks that it came out about how, and again, I hate to keep saying Blade Runner, but it's me we're talking about here. So that show was influenced by Blade Runner, which then influenced 2049 and other shows. Mm-hmm. So it's like the influence is right in my wheelhouse. So I probably will watch that at some point.
And the cool thing about Cowboy Bebop's English dub is that despite its time period that it was produced with Steve Bloom and them, it is still regarded as one of the best English dubs for an anime.
So I've heard that too. Yeah.
English dubs are hit and miss for anime. Some people like them, some people don't. Did you watch Akira in English or Japanese?
I think we did subtitles.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we did subs.
I don't know how the dub is for Akira. I heard it might have been good. Do you know who Johnny Young Bosch is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I
met the guy, actually. He was at Comic-Con one year.
I'd love to meet Johnny Young Bosch.
Hi.
Yeah, I respect him a lot. He was in the English dub of Akira as well, and I hear he got an award for that, or he was up for an award at least.
Okay, I'm not sure who he played, but yeah, that sounds about right.
You know what? I'll tell you, just because Audacity's being weird. Give me a second. He was Kaneda. He was the main character.
Oh, okay.
So that's pretty cool. But yeah. So it's I do really respect that show. But hey, you know what? On the topic of Blade Runner, sorry if you've heard Vinny talk about this a lot, but this is the Blade Runner segment, I guess we'll call it.
Okay.
I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Blade Runner. I finally saw it, and I really liked it. I thought it was coming off of Alien, I loved it for very similar reasons. I think the plot, although I think the pacing is this is probably a age-old discussion, but I think the plot's pacing is I appreciate it more from an atmospheric standpoint, because it does build up to some like thematic explosion at the end of the movie with Rutger Hauer's character, and that whole sequence was it was actually kind of terrifying with the lady that tries to kill Harrison Ford, or Deckard.
Oh yeah.
So now before we I guess delve into the details, can you quickly summarize why Blade Runner is a favorite of yours?
I think part of it is that pacing, which almost becomes hypnotic. But the first time I saw it, I didn't get it because the end didn't have a Death Star blowing up. And Harrison Ford was just a depressed alcoholic. And, I'm not sure, was I supposed to like him? Is he the hero? It kind of isn't. Just as Roy Batty kind of isn't the villain. So I didn't really get a lot of that the first time I watched it.
Yeah.
But I ended up watching the movie another time, and then another time. And that's when it really, really clicked. Because I knew I loved the music and the visuals on the first viewing, but I didn't really know why this movie was regarded as like the most famous, one of the most influential sci-fi movies of all time. And it took me a couple watches. But again, this is the final cut.
Oh,
my first exposure to the movie was the final cut.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. But the final cut was available alongside the original theatrical version, and I was like, yeah, the final cut sounds like the better version.
It is. And the original has, I mean, that's a whole discussion I won't get into, but it's just the final cut is probably the definitive version of the film. So that was the first one I saw. But I think one of the things I love about the movie is I've watched it, well over like a dozen times. And each time I've watched it, I picked up a new thing. But not just like, a background detail. Because yes, that too. But also like maybe little thematic things.
Yeah.
Or musical things. Or just kind of moments that go by kind of quick that are really interesting.
Yeah.
And it doesn't hurt that the world design is so fleshed out.
Yeah, it's I always really loved that lo-fi futuristic setting of Alien, and Blade Runner is just an extension of that. I absolutely love the way that movie looks. And the soundtrack is oh my god, the soundtrack.
It's Vangelis at his best, but also everyone at their best. I think that's Ridley Scott's most personal movie. I don't know if it's better than Alien, but I like it a little bit more than Alien. But I think, it's just an endlessly rewatchable movie. The themes of the movie make me... I have deep existential issues. I write about it in my music. I think about it, and I wonder what we're doing here on this planet a lot. I have some issues with depression that run in my family. And while I'm doing better, of course... I would say that that's kind of always going to be a part of me. And part of that is trying to find purpose and meaning in what sometimes is a very temporary, like, just, live your best life and, do vacations and like, don't worry, media is to be consumed and then thrown away. And that's nice for a little while, but it doesn't lend to meaning. There's no real answer to what we're doing here on this planet. There's no real spirituality that makes any sense when you compare it to like everything. Someone who went to Catholic school their whole life and then later on was like, oh, this doesn't work for me. And yet I couldn't find something that really worked. And so for years, I just kind of struggled with what's the point? That's where I think a lot of media is fun, but doesn't last for me. And with Blade Runner, it kind of, and movies like that, and media and music like that, that's the stuff I really respond to. Stuff that I can put on and it might stay with me and evolve with me as time goes on, and my perspective on the thing might change. And I like the theme of what makes us human. And I like when Roy Batty inevitably becomes kind of more human than human, as the motto of the movie would entail. And he ends up understanding that even though he's a synthetically made human creature, life form, that his choice to save Deckard at the end was his choice to make. And it's because he felt empathy. He finally, the replicants don't have empathy throughout the whole movie. And then he chooses empathy at the very last second before he dies. That is the real Death Star blowing up, so to speak.
Yeah.
It's not a visual, like, crazy thing that happens, but it's there. And that deepens every time I watch the movie, especially as I get older, and especially as I go through my trials and tribulations and have to come to terms with who I am versus how people view me versus what is, what's the point? So the movie really works for me on that level. And I've shown people that have fallen asleep to the movie. I've shown people that didn't get it. And I've shown people that it ended up becoming one of their favorites too. And that's what I like about the movie. I think media that's made for everyone can sometimes be a little watered down. Not always the case. But when you're going for that widest general audience, sometimes it's, so surface level. Again, that's not always the case. But a movie or a piece of media or a game that is a little bit more, let's say, not divisive really, but like well, people just don't like it. That, to me, kind of sometimes has its own life for a whole other group of people where, it's more esoteric for them. So that's why Blade Runner is my favorite movie. It's not the best movie ever made, and it's not even better than Ridley Scott's other movies necessarily, but it's the one that I keep coming back to, and the one that whatever body-brain chemistry I have, whatever weird thought processes I have evolved into, that's the one that fires the right neurons. And I couldn't give you a better... Well, that was a long answer, but the shorter answer is I'm not even really 100% sure. It just is.
Well,
so
I think that's a perfect description, is that when you say that you're not even sure. I think that's kind of what Blade Runner was about.
Yeah.
We're not exactly sure what makes us human. We have a grasp on what humans are capable of feeling, but I think Blade Runner also touched upon it's like you said, empathy, and it's not what we're feeling, it's what we do with those feelings, because we could be like Deckard throughout most of the movie, or we could be like the replicant who became he had more humanity in his final moments than Deckard did when he was trying to kill him.
Yeah, and Deckard also had to kill all these other replicants, which deep down he drinks so much because I think he knows that these are like, you can say they're not human. I mean, again, it's also kind of a metaphor for, like war to a degree too, like how we dehumanize others to get a job done when deep down we're all just, people. Yeah.
That was the impression that I got from the film too. It's just cog in the machine kind of thing when you're at war, and these are people that you're killing.
I think that's in there too. I think there's a lot of themes, but Ridley Scott lost his brother, and he was in a kind of a dark place, and he made this movie then, which is why he said it was his most personal movie, because he put a lot of that into it. And I don't think he ever got quite to the heights of Blade Runner again emotionally. And I think he never really got quite to the heights of Alien in regards to his directing, so to me, those two are just I mean, he's had great movies since then, but you can't really beat those two as a combo.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. It's better than Prometheus.
Yes. Yes.
But yeah, it's definitely something that I'm going to appreciate the more I rewatch it. Same with Alien, that I think Blade Runner has a lot going on. Now, when I said that Avatar was about the consequences of war, I meant its after effects, like how people deal with what happened, because that's what the show is about. It's the war is over. The Fire Nation won at the beginning of the show. They colonized a lot of the world, and it's just about how people deal with it, including Aang, the Avatar himself, and because he didn't want to be the Avatar, he didn't choose to end this war. He was born having chosen to do this just by fate. And, he's a kid, so why would he want to do that? He wants to just hang out. And that's another reason I identify with Blade Runner as well, is that it wasn't the consequences of war. It was I didn't identify with it. I guess it resonated with me is the better approach. I've never been at war. It resonated with me because it demonstrated war firsthand, and just how people deal with just being forced to kill and lacking humanity in killing those that are not viewed as human.
And it's real easy to do that. I mean, even without killing people, there's a lot of dehumanization happening right now. I mean, in various ways, and it's just it's almost too easy. And I'll say, because of the internet, when you don't have a face, you don't have the face-to-face emotion, the empathy, the, human connection, conversation. It's real easy to say, well, that's just a name on the internet, so it doesn't really matter. And they have a different viewpoint than I do, so they're scum. And I don't know how we took this approach to this conversation, but I'm okay with it because, it's stuff I think about. And I think a lot of that turns into bigger, deeper problems. And this is just my perspective. And I have my own, I'm the sum of my own experiences, right? Mm-hmm. But everyone still has a core of humanity, and not everyone can be appealed to, and not everyone is going to be on your side 100% about things, but you can still view someone as a person, and maybe they had their own experiences and tragedies. You don't make it out of this thing alive, and you don't make it out of this thing without having experienced dozens of little mini tragedies, and maybe a couple even huge ones. Mm-hmm. So it's important when there are flawed people or people with very distinct, strong viewpoints that might not mirror your own, that it's I think it's always important to consider what they might have been through. Now, Blade Runner isn't really about that 100%, but
yeah,
these are replicants that end up, they fail empathy tests because they're created only within a couple years to live a couple years.
Yeah.
But that said, though, they can transcend this programming as seen in Blade Runner and its sequel, especially, and they can become something a lot greater. And that's what I love about it. I like watching the journey of Roy Batty, and I like watching the journey of Officer K in the sequel. And I think they mirror each other very nicely, which is, musically, there's a cue for that.
Oh, cool.
It's great.
I'm a sucker for
both
that.
Movies. Yeah, you'll enjoy it. You haven't seen the sequel, right?
No, I was scared that it wouldn't exactly capture the same feeling.
It's different, but captures similar feelings, and in some ways maybe even surpasses the original. Not in all ways, but in some.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
High
recommendation.
Considering you are the ambassador for Blade Runner, it seems, then I mean, it's a high recommendation, yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Can you believe we started the recording talking about Jackass? And we just went there?
Well, I'll tell you what. To me, that's a perfect place to end. I'm just saying, now, we don't have to, but from going from Jackass and like donged Godzillas to what makes us human, and and how to transcend who we were brought up to be. You know what I mean? Like, these are fantastic topics, and the gamut in between I thought was interesting. And there was Spider-Man. He was there. He watched.
Yes. Thank God. I needed Spider-Man to cheer me on.
So, but I know you did want to talk about Red Vox a little bit too, right?
Yeah. There's only so much that I really can talk about with this album. But Visions came out recently. I actually managed to make it for the premiere stream.
Thanks, Liam.
Yeah, no problem. I missed Another Light because I was on a trip. No, I missed Realign because I was on a trip. Another Light I was there for. Another Light I remember because the whole band was there. And that was cool. But I thought Visions was a great album, and I think you guys killed it. And just congratulations.
Well, thank you.
You described it as back to basics, I suppose, for the sound of the album.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard a lot of that in There's a Place. It was like it felt like a matured What Could Go Wrong kind of song, and I really, really liked it. The melody was fantastic. Guitars were great. But when I was listening to it front to back at the premiere stream, the song that caught me off guard was Temple, I believe it's called.
Mm-hmm.
That was like, it's hard for me to articulate what I think I loved most about that song. Sorry, I hit my desk. But I think because it was so powerful in like construction, like with the guitars being so in your face, and then it just felt like a ballad, I guess I would describe it. It's like it felt like it just, and it also just after such a balanced introduction, it was really cool to hear it. And I think the placement on that song was a good choice. Like putting it right there. Yeah.
So I can talk a little bit about it. Like, one of the things that I don't like to talk about, as you know, are the lyrics, the meaning of the lyrics. So I've given you little choice. Well, I've given you few questions. Let's put it that way.
It's fine because last time it's just you like to leave them vague. I think you mentioned because you want to leave it up to interpretation.
I do, and first of all, I want to thank you for being interested in the music and making me feel like this is, like something better than maybe I think it is, or not, but more important to someone, because for me, it's still just a streamer releasing music, and I'm happy to do so. I love it, and I'm happy that people like it. But the fact that, there are people that kind of speculate and want to know more, it's really nice. It's a nice feeling. So thank you for giving me that opportunity to have that. And, the more, I'll tell you what, the more the music gets out there, the more I notice that, and it's always cool. So, but I don't like to talk about the meaning of my lyrics because I think it's more important that people kind of have their own interpretations. And some of my lyrics aren't specific about one thing. Some of them are, and some of them aren't. But a lot of my favorite artists don't reveal like their exact meanings. And I think that that's kind of cool. There may come a time where I reveal some, but not all.
Yeah, I think it's definitely wise not to, because then I think, especially music persists longer if it's left for people to discuss. So I think that's a good choice.
Yeah, and it's also I think it's important that people are able to, like, when people tell me like, oh, they listened to Another Light and they got something from it that made them feel a little bit better. That's cool, because then it becomes your song as opposed to mine.
Yeah.
Now, that said, I've seen people's interpretations of some of my lyrics that are just like not correct in my mind, what they mean to me. But I don't mind, because it's kind of cool that people have their own thoughts on it. So I like to leave it, like I said, I like to leave it like kind of vague, but some of it's more implicit than others. But Temple is like, I think, probably one of the vaguest ones, and it has a couple different feelings that the lyrics give and a couple different moods. And what I will say is that the concept of the temple is like, if you view it as like something sacred that you're not allowed to defile, right? Like a temple is a very sacred, important thing for a lot of people. So that's kind of the concept I was working off of. I thought it fit the music nicely.
I have an idea of how it fits into the overall picture. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I think that's why I liked it a lot too, is that I couldn't figure it out even after multiple listens.
Yeah, and even from me, it kind of didn't really. The way I write isn't always, I have a thing I need to talk about, I'm going to write it down and put it in the song. A lot of it comes from me living with the music and getting a couple lines that fit the meter in my head, where I'm like, oh, that's a great line. Where'd that come from? And then after I get like, say, half or more of the song, then I put the work in and try to figure out what it means and then write around that. Mm-hmm. Sometimes if I'm lucky, I just got one recently from a dream that I got almost all the lyrics the next day, where I just kind of like, it just poured out. But Temple, a lot of it came pretty natural, but then some of it I had to figure out, and only a couple lines like eluded me for a little while. But I'm really happy with that one. The problem with that one was the mixing. Vocally, we had a number of different things that we tried. Instrumentally, I mean, some of the instruments, I think one of the guitars, and a couple other little things like the solo guitar, that was straight from the demo file because we couldn't reproduce that better. And that lent to a certain vibe I didn't want to lose. Now, when I say demo file, I mean me recording at home into a direct input. So the sound quality is still really good. One of the other things about that song that I like is it's a 3-part song. Some of my favorite songs have that style where there's no specific chorus. It's just intro, middle, end.
Yeah.
Like Happiness is a Warm Gun from the Beatles has that. And there's a couple other examples that don't come to mind at the moment.
Probably from
one of the reasons I put that at number 3 on the album is because it had a 3-act structure. But also, I felt like the album is not a concept album, but there is a theme. And to me, you go from the kind of ethereal weightiness, not even weightiness, like it's like kind of it's such a metaphysical kind of metaphorical concept, the Visions and Afterthoughts song, the first one, and it doesn't really, have any grounding in reality. There's so few lyrics.
Yeah.
And then you go to Middle of the Street, which is as grounded as you can get, like literally the fucking street. And there's very specific lines. Again, it's metaphorical, but the idea of, and musically too, both songs kind of fit that. And then Temple was like also really like grounded. And that's why some of the imagery in the video is just like rocks, structures, that's kind of the point, is to start there and then go from there. And Temple made a lot of sense next to Middle of the Street. So that's really what I can say. That, and it was one of my favorite songs, but then I heard it so many times when we were mixing it that now it's just like, it's like hearing Smells Like Teen Spirit for the 50th time on the radio. It's like, please God, no more. That said, though, in like a year, I'll be able to appreciate it a lot more.
That's how I feel about every time I make a video. I hate it for a while. Well, most times.
Well, yeah, I mean...
Like, it's not like I made the Wind Waker video and I immediately hated it. That video is very personal to me. But, yeah, it's I understand. Yeah, so... Oh, sorry, I'm trying to recall something that I wanted to mention.
Yeah, I went on a bit of a tangent, but you should just call this Tangent Hour with Vinny.
It was worth it. I was gonna say the 3-act structure of the Temple reminds me of some of the songs on The Fragile by 9 Inch Nails.
Oh yeah, love that album.
Yeah, that's it's the thing is with the debate between Downward Spiral and The Fragile is it's the length. And also, I want to say that if a concept album doesn't necessarily have to be like, and it doesn't mean like there's an overarching theme. At least to me, a concept album could also be telling a story about, a protagonist that isn't named. It's like it tells a story about an event or something like that. Because to me, all albums that I listen to have an overarching theme without being concept albums. That's how I interpret music anyway. Like Silent Alarm by Block Party is it has themes of like poverty, struggling in like the early 20s, in your early 20s, I should say, not in the 1920s. It's Stratosphere by Duster, I think the album's called.
I don't know that.
That's a very, very obscure album. But it's I think you would absolutely love that album, by the way. It's a very, very atmospheric album, very few lyrics, and they're usually very silent. And there's a part in the album, I don't want to spoil it entirely, that gave me the same feeling that The Temple did.
Cool. Link me to that after we're done talking.
Okay. Yeah, it's yeah, I'll link you to that. It's so that's how I feel about thematics in album. And the other thing is too about discussing music. I feel like such a fraud sometimes because I haven't extensively studied music theory. I like talking about how music makes me feel in its composition. And
well, that's more important to me than music theory. You know, it's all feel, and then I'm able to apply what little theory I picked up along the way for when I have to do the work to make the song work. But truthfully, I mean, the guys in the band will tell you, with me, it's all feel.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not an amazing guitarist, I'm not an amazing singer, and I'm not like the best songwriter, but I will say that all three work together to create something decent. And I think because of the feel of the music and how I do sometimes get music from dreams, I think that's my strength. And you got to work to your strengths. Like, I'm not going to try to compose, like I said before, with math rock, or I'm not going to try to do like a progressive rock album like Mars Volta, because I just don't have that in me. And I don't think I would have the patience or the amount of drugs required as the Mars Volta probably did. But I do know what I like, and I make music that I wish I was hearing on the radio. Well, not really radio, but like, this is music I would listen to, and I like my songs. And when I'm, the best feeling is when I write a new song and then it's stuck in my head for like 2 weeks. And I'm like, it's like if I listen to a great song from a band I like, but it's my own song and we haven't even recorded it yet. So I'm just hearing what I would imagine it would sound like later. So that's kind of where it all comes from. But in regards to the theming of an album, I'll tell you an interesting thing. And again, I know your viewers and mine have a bit of an overlap, but if you don't know my stuff, it's rock music. It's like influenced from like classic rock and a little bit of Radiohead. But a lot of stuff from the 90s. So what we were going to do for this album originally was, since we had a bunch of like harder rock songs that didn't belong on Realign and Kerosene, we had a couple. And the idea was, well, let's do an album like that, like almost like a grunge album. And we'll use these couple that we have and whatever new stuff happens along the way. And my idea originally was I was going to do a self-titled album just called Red Vox. And it wouldn't have been a themed album. There wouldn't have been a concept, really. It was just going to be a collection of songs that I like and that the band liked. So that was the starting point after we were done with Realign and its EP. But as time went on, we used the song, like Choking on the Spite is an old one. Temple was maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, something like that. And Middle of the Street was the same time as Temple. So like those songs, and then we wrote some new ones, and as time goes on, I can't help it. It's like, you can't turn the faucet off, and so new songs always happen. But this has happened for literally every one of our albums, except the first one, where I start with an idea in mind, or no ideas, and then the concept or the theme reveals itself, like maybe a quarter to halfway through the production of the album. And then I lean into it, and I try to understand what it means to me. And then, weirdly enough, new stuff kind of just happens naturally that fits the theme. And maybe some would disagree. Some people aren't fans of one song or another. But so this was going to be a self-titled grunge rock album. And I think, and let me know what you think, Liam, but I think we transcended that concept a bit. And I think what we put out was a little bit more than just grunge in that sense of the word.
Yeah, I think so.
And I'm happy. I really like this album. This is my favorite one so far. but I also say that every time I release an album.
That's good. That's a good feeling to have.
It is, but then after, it's like the Zelda cycle, because after a short time I hate it, or while it's just about to be finished, I hate it. So it's like, it's a cycle of weirdness of how I feel about the thing. But yeah, so I'm happy that happened, because I think this is a more interesting direction than having just a self-titled collection of songs.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a good album. I'm happy that you guys finished it off, and I'm looking forward to whatever you guys come up with next.
Well, thank you, and I'll be sure to give you all the spoilers on when we have new work. I'll be like, hey, Liam, here's a spoiler. The next album is going to be called Red Vox.
Oh,
it's a self-titled collection of grunge songs. Yeah.
There were some other things I wanted to go into, but other than that, I think this is a perfect place to cap things off. So I'm gonna chop this up a little bit to make it seem a little more cohesive, but for now, it really has. We've been recording for nearly 3 hours. I'm actually sad that it's over now. Time just flies, man. Time flies, especially as you get older. I've learned.
Yeah.
But hey, I hope you guys enjoyed listening to this. Thank you so much, Vinny, for agreeing to this again. This is always a lot of fun.
No, thanks, Liam. I like just talking about random stuff, truthfully, and we have similar interests, but I think we have good conversations on those interests. So I appreciate your time and interest in my music and my career as a video game streamer.
Mm-hmm. And what a prolific career it's been, from Tomodachi Life to other games.
To something else. I don't know, somewhere in there. Maybe I played a Mario game.
Maybe a Zelda, maybe a Mario. So yeah. Have a good day, rest of your day, everybody listening to this, and Vinny, hope you have a good rest of your day. And,
thank you.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
See ya.